Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry, and with me, as always, is Eric, the Whiskey Mutant himself.
Team Elmo, baby.
Team Elmo all the friggin' way.
Get those rocks out of here. Nobody take my snacks away. Don't let anybody take your snacks away.
Never.
Elmo's right.
Elmo is always right. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Surrounded by bottles over here.
Surrounded by bottles, just as we typically are, but in a, in our new setup and everything.
Yes. I got my own computer over here.
It's weird.
We're like pros.
We need a producer in here now, too,
Yeah.
I feel like.
They're going to sit over there in the corner. They don't get the table, though.
No. We'll give them a mic, though, so every once in a while, if we need to like fact check something. Yeah, exactly. Can I turn your mic off while I'm doing? Hey, I can.
Oh, no.
Came back on at the wrong time. That was awesome. That was really, really good. I didn't know I could do that, but here we are. You are also here, dear listener. Well, yeah, you are here, but I was talking to the listener.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was also going to let the listener know that if they have not yet subscribed to the podcast, please do so. You can also follow us on social media at MyBourbonPod and at Whiskey Mutant. You can check out all of our apparel and merch at bourbonshop.threadless.com and whiskeymutant.shopify.com.
Yes.
And you can also become a patron of the show at patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast for as little as $1 a month. $5 a month, though, gets you bonus content, which is just, it's something else entirely, isn't it? Just
It's something.
This week's stuff is weird.
You got a lot of extra content this week.
Yeah, lots.
Four bottles on Pours from the Floor. Extra long episode of Pours from the Floor. Wild questions on pregame chats.
Crazy questions. We go to some weird places.
I mean, they're so wild that the people asking the questions just answer them themselves.
I kind of like that, though.
Yeah, I like just reading what everybody else says. If we ask a question on the pregame chats, just if anybody else wants to answer it, do it. I want to hear it.
Please, yeah, absolutely. Also, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice. And if we have not seen it, please just take a screenshot, send it to us, and let us know.
You can review anything and send it to us, and we'll read it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that we did that for a while.
It was fun.
It was fun. We can do it again, I guess.
We can do
those reviews are going to be taken
whatever
down,
you like.
We don't have any new reviews this week, but we did get a few new ratings, so that's nice.
Our ratings.
You said that last week too.
NC-17.
I don't know how to respond to it. No. What are we doing? Are we doing?
We're doing 2.
2 what?
Things in this segment.
You came on really hot there, and I was like, I didn't even get the question out all the way. I was gonna ask, are we doing Flying Blind or are we doing Sips and Snacks this week?
I think I meant to say both, but I said we're doing 2. We're doing 2.
Worst response to
even
that
I don't even know why I came off so hot like that. Like, I don't know. I had no idea. Oh,
that was fantastic.
Both. We're doing both.
We're doing both Flying Blind and Sips and Snacks. Okay.
What do you want to do first? You want to do Flying Blind first?
Yeah, let's do Flying Blind first. That was so aggressive.
I don't know what happened, okay? This Elmo question in the pregame chat's got me heated.
Do I need to turn away?
No, they're not marked.
Oh, okay. They're in sample bottles.
Yeah. So, I'll pour a little bit of this, and you can just have the rest of that.
Okay. It's from somebody?
Yep. So different than what we've been drinking on the pregame.
Smells like Frosted Cheerios.
I can see that.
There's a little like smokiness
to
it as well.
I thought it was just like this, almost like just a straight up like classic bourbon or rye, but it's smoky.
I'm also realizing we jumped into this segment without actually explaining to people what it is.
Oh, this is Flying Blind.
Yeah, so Flying Blind is where we blind each other with something to kind of get our palates rolling for the episode. And apparently we're also doing Sips and Snacks.
We are.
Which is a pairing between a bourbon rye or some kind of whiskey and
a snack and a whiskey.
snack, yeah. Snack and a whiskey.
What do you think?
Am I seeing barrel char floating around in my glass?
I don't know.
Is this an MGP product?
You know what? I'm assuming, but I'm not for sure. I didn't get confirmation on that.
It's got that MGP-ness about it.
You may know once I tell you. You may know more than me, so I don't know.
Like 115-ish proof.
Too high.
Too high. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I said this when I had it. I said this drink's higher than what the... I can't remember if I said... No, I said this drink's lower than what the actual proof is. I felt it was like lower proof than that.
Is it a bottled and bond product?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's a blend. I can't really explain it because I don't know enough about it.
Okay, just what is this?
This is a Nassif Family Reserve American Whiskey ADHD pick, 107 proof.
Oh, no, this is light whiskey.
Did he blend it, or was it a pick? I know he did a blend at some point.
I don't know.
So it's a light whiskey, and I'm assuming it's MGP?
What's the proof?
107.
Wow. It's really hot on my tongue for some reason.
This was when I did the live stream on my Instagram. This was part of the sample flight I got sent.
Oh, okay.
From John, cool. John Passer. He is a listener of this show too. He sent this to me.
Hi, John.
Yeah, I had met him at the Beaumont that day when me and April went.
Oh, right. Yeah,
They brought the orange snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Those orange and
those weird orange snacks that I was confused by.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And so now for sips and snacks, I got the raspberry ones he sent. He sent raspberry and cherry.
Oh, sweet.
So on my Instagram Live, I took the raspberry and I took one of the other samples he had, and I figured out which one paired best with the raspberry. So that's what we got over there.
Patreon got that weird.
Yeah, I was just editing.
That weird cut.
Resetting myself. So yeah, that's a ADHD whiskey pick. I thought you might like
It was
that.
really good. Yeah. I miss Matt Porter so much.
He stopped in on your live stream last
He did, and I it genuinely made me so happy. Because I haven't seen him since the fall of 2019, which is 2.5 years ago at this point.
You made him cry.
And I made him cry. But also just I just love that guy so much. And he's been, the thing that I think makes me the saddest is that he's been in Kentucky, but he hasn't had time to
he's busy, man.
come see me. So we're going to have to carve out some time here, Matt.
Yeah. I think he would be down for some sips and snacks.
Oh, he would be a champ of sips and snacks.
Hand me one of them bad boys over here.
I'm not ready for these because I'm remembering my experience with the orange ones.
I love these things.
Do you like them better than the orange ones?
Yes. So these are little chocolate sticks, but they have raspberry jelly inside of them. And John, at the tasting, he had orange ones, and me and Perry did that pairing. They're just these orange. It's almost like a Twix, a mini Twix, but instead of crunch in the middle, it's got jelly in the middle. And I think this pairs so good with it.
It pairs great with it. Oh, it just enhances the berryness.
Oh yeah, I said when I first tasted that, I said this is straight up berry raspberry on the palate, and I instantly knew I had to pair it.
What is this?
I'm an MGP boy. Sorry. This is a Mayor Pingree pick. Valentine Distilling. Oop, drop some. Mayor Pingree. It's 6 year, 1 month, and it's Minnesota Love pick. 120.6 proof.
Wow. I would have had the proofs swapped.
It does not drink like it's 120
No,
proof.
it doesn't at all. Wow, that's crushable.
Yeah.
I think this might be the first Mayor Pingree that I've had, too.
I've never had any, and I think we talked about it at the Beaumont. And he was like, I'm going to send you some samples.
Yeah.
And other than the ADHD pick, he sent 4 different Mayor Pingrees to me.
Wow.
One, which I saved, and I'll have to let you try, which was my favorite of the blind. A 13-year-old MGP.
Oh, snap.
Mare Pingree, 13-year, black label, 123 proof. It was amazing.
That sounds delicious.
It's really good. Anyway, no sips and snacks.
Anyway, and pour. I keep saying pours from the floor. That's a Patreon thing. Yeah, Flying Blind too. Eric, what have you been drinking recently?
What have I been drinking? Well, I will say we just opened this Knob Creek pick from Ernie's.
And it's delicious.
It's delicious. Perry, let me try some Flatboat. Foolproof.
That's the only really new thing that I have.
It's 125 proof, and it tastes like 125 proof Eagle Rare. I'm kid you not.
Yeah, it really does taste like a Buffalo Trace product. But I feel like it is definitely Barton, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be surprised if it weren't something sourced like that.
And then last night, I sent Perry a little picture.
Oh, yeah.
Because I opened up our #1 bourbon of the year for 2021. Had some more of that E.H. Taylor barrel proof. And it's just as good as it was before.
Still incredible. Last night I did a dry live stream in honor of our dear friend Lil out of Brisbane, Australia, who of course
down under.
It's public now, and we kind of had to all keep it hush hush for a while, but she's been. I said this last night because I don't really feel like she's battling it. She's just kind of like destroyed it.
Heck yeah, she has.
She's been dealing with, which is the opposite, I feel like, of saying battling, because dealing with sounds like it's a cold, like it's something really light. But she has breast cancer, or did have breast cancer, but she had surgery and removed all of the masses, and she is going through chemo right now, though. It's a long 12-week process for them. So in solidarity with both her and Chris, her partner, I did a dry stream last night, and I had the world's flattest Ale 81 and a delightful Freddy's root beer. So those my two drinks. I also felt like I was going to die after I got done drinking that much soda in an hour.
We're just burping everywhere.
No, it just really sat on like the bottom of my stomach. I mean, it was just all here for like the entire, like to the point where I thought I was going to get sick.
Like I drink Coke Zero, but I can only drink like one a day. Like anything carbonated just like bloats me up as I take a drink of my Coke Zero.
I just don't do soda, and I said this on the stream too. I like that's the most soda I think I've had in one sitting since I was probably like a late tween, early teen.
I used to kill Mountain Dews back in the day. I was a holler rat. I mean, I'm just like Mountain Dew in my bottle, probably.
I had a girlfriend who just lost her mind every time that she had a Mountain Dew. And I've had Mountain Dew.
Like she went Hulk. Like she's just like,
No, it was just this weird like
smash Mountain Dew.
It was this weird hyperactivity that just was like kind of like quirky, awkward. Like I didn't know how to fully deal with it, and so that's my memory of anybody drinking Mountain Dew. But
I used to down Code Reds all the time too. Like during the summer.
All right, you gamer boy.
That's what I was gonna say. We'd be hanging out
LAN party.
Not LAN, but we'd be playing Final Fantasy or something, and we would have like just bags of Doritos and like Code Red, and we would just like play Final Fantasy.
Dude, this isn't what I've been drinking recently, but I cannot get off of this Doritos Cool Ranch kick that I've been on for like the past year. They're just the best things in the world.
I love the Doritos Cool Ranch taco shells.
I miss them. I miss them so much.
Good.
Taco Bell, I know you're listening.
Sponsor us.
And
and
also bring back the Cool Ranch shell.
Did they ever bring back the cheesy gordita potatoes?
Yes.
Did they?
They brought the potatoes back.
Did they?
Yeah. Finally. The sad thing, though, is that you can only get the quesarito on like mobile orders, online orders, which is fine. I mean, that's typically how I order Taco Bell anyway.
Man, I got pissed at Taco Bell the other day. So
What happened?
So it was the Taco Bell on Harrodsburg Road, right across from Ernie's.
Oh yeah.
We were all just like, we didn't have time to cook, and I was just like, April's sister and her husband and their kids were at the house. I was like, I'm just going to get a bunch of tacos. Like, everybody, all the kids would eat tacos.
Yeah.
And I pulled up, and me being the nice guy I am, and just because I like to make conversation, I said, hey, I got a big order for you. Like, so, and they're like, and the guy was just not having it. I'm like, this is Taco Bell. I mean, right close to UK. Like, you imagine the kind of orders they get?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I got a pretty big order. And he's like, all right, let's hear it. I start telling him, and he's like, I was like, I want to get some chicken tacos and this many. I mean, it was like it was like 2 boxes, basically. You know, those big family boxes.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, the guy in the headset, he's like, bro, are you kidding me?
What?
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not kidding. Like,
That's bad customer service no matter where you go.
Yeah, and then me just joking around still is like, man, I got a big family at home. I got to feed everybody. He's like, and you're going to Taco Bell? I said,
shut up.
I said, you know what?
What?
I said, you. And I laid on the horn and drove around the drive-thru one more time and then left. Yeah. The guy said, you're feeding your family at Taco Bell?
I don't know what to say to that.
I was so
What is that guy's problem?
I've never been so mad in my life. I was so mad. April was like, she was nervous because she was like, I never see you that mad.
Okay, so first of all, how dare they?
Yeah.
Second of all, you're working at Taco Bell.
Right. It's like they have the boxes that come with like 15 tacos, and I wanted like basically 2 of those boxes.
Having worked in customer service for a large corporate entity, if you were to tweet to them, tell them about how bad that experience was, you could easily get free food. Easily get free food.
I had like 8 people at my house, and I was going to get like 15 beef tacos and like 15 chicken tacos. That was it. And the guy was
That's nothing.
The guy was like, you mean you want 15 of each? I was like, yeah, dude. He was like, bro. I was like, what?
That's like $30 worth of tacos.
And I was like, I was laughing. I was like, I got a big family at home. He's like, and you're feeding them Taco Bell? I was like, oh my. I was like, it's over after this. Like, I was pissed. Put my middle finger out the window. I was cussing.
I don't blame you.
I was mad.
Dude, that's the most obnoxious thing I've heard in a long time.
All right. It's one person making a big order instead of 15 cars in line making like 15 separate orders.
What? That is the worst customer service I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, ask April about it next time we're around. Like, she was legitimately like, I've never seen you that mad. I was like, not only would I didn't get my tacos, he questioned why I was buying tacos for my family.
What business is that of yours to ask that question? All right, Taco Bell, now that I know that you're listening.
I'd still eat some Taco Bell.
Dude, I would crush some Taco Bell right now. That's all I can legitimately think about now. Last time I had Taco Bell, I thought I was getting sick. It was just the effect that it had on my body.
Hey, sometimes you just got to risk it all, baby.
Hey, it's worth it.
It is.
It's the healthiest fast food option.
Yeah, because it comes out so fast. It doesn't linger in your body.
True. Anyway, so this week, I don't really want to call this an interview because it's so much more conversational. And not that last week's episode wasn't conversational with Drew. And by the way, thank you all so much for going and checking out that episode. Got a lot of very positive feedback about it. It meant a lot. But this week, I finally was able to get the guys from Film and Whiskey, Bob and Brad, on the podcast. I've been on their show twice, and just kind of running out the clock. I hadn't had them on.
I keep trying to get to do some anime.
Oh, you should. Dude.
I've messaged them about it. They were asking me, and then I've yet to see it.
They should do Akira.
I told them to.
Akira would be like perfect for them.
Put me on the show. I'll do it with you.
I just want to sit in the room and hear you guys talk about it while it's happening. But just two incredibly sweet, wonderful guys who actually went to seminary just outside of Lexington in Harrodsburg, right?
They're from Ohio. In Ohio?
They're in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yeah. But you're really going to enjoy getting to hear about their story and everything that they've done with the podcast and beyond. So I hope you enjoy.
Enjoy.
And ladies and gentlemen, here's Bob and Brad from Film and Whiskey. Guys, how the heck are you?
Harry, thank you so much for having us, man. I've been waiting for this day for a long time.
Okay, let's go ahead and get this out of the way because I have been feeling really guilty about this for just about 2 years on at this point now that I have now been on Film and Whiskey twice. But I have not yet had you guys on the podcast, which I truly, truly apologize for. But please know that it's never been because I'm ignoring you. It's just the fact that I'm really bad with follow through.
No, listen, like between the three of us, I think we have brought 3 humans in the world since we started talking about this. So we have other commitments. We have excuses. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That is true.
And honestly, on top of that, we are full of grace. You don't have to apologize. We will forgive you in at least 2 years. Like we won't hold it against you any longer than that. We promise.
Whatever it takes, however many Hail Marys you have to say before it gets to the full resolution portion of everything. I don't know, but anyway, guys, it's funny because I was legitimately a fan of what you all were doing before I met either of you all or even talked to either of you all. And you guys started in, correct me if I'm wrong, the beginning of 2019, right?
Yeah. We're coming up on our 3-year anniversary this February.
That is crazy, man. Because you guys, it was funny because you all started your show around the same time that Bourbon and Blondes out of St. Louis did. And I mean, I wasn't even 2 years into This Is My Bourbon podcast. And I was like, there's the new blood, the new crop of bourbon podcasters. And I get to be the senior. And I was like, that's like, now I'm looking back on it. I'm like, that's such a dumb thing for me to have thought at that point. Like, you guys were doing great without any kind of direction or anything. And I love still what you all are doing, but I also want to give you guys, we've talked enough about in general what you do, but specifically, what is the structure of Film and Whiskey, and what do you guys do with it?
Well, honestly, Perry, it's crazy for me to think that you feel that way because our early stuff, Bob, I don't know, how do you feel about our early stuff?
Yeah, I was going to say you're very sweet, but we were not killing it from the beginning, my friend.
Yeah.
Like we actively tell people now, like, hey, we're in our 5th season, and at least 2 of them are really good.
Yes. Yep.
At least 2 of them.
I mean, if you're an old enough listener, you might remember when we had our Anchorman preview episode up before we took it down, and that was just some of the greatest content.
I honestly don't know if I remember the Anchorman preview episode.
Yeah, we did like a dry run. So yeah, to answer your question, the format of the show is that, Brad and I have been friends for a long, long time. I've always been a huge movie nerd, and I wanted him to start watching classic movies. And he was like, I'm never going to have time for that. So we basically just decided we're going to do this.
So he
podcast.
gave me a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, well, there you go.
We were living in Kentucky at the time, and we were just starting to get into the world of whiskey. And we thought, like, what a cool idea to basically do. Hey, you're getting into movies. We're both getting into whiskey at the same time. Let us go on this journey of discovery together. And so we put a mic down in front of us, and we did a dry run where we reviewed Anchorman and drank some whiskey.
The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
And it is borderline unlistenable.
It's a shame that it doesn't exist anymore because that honestly would probably have wound up being my favorite episode.
Yeah,
we need to bring that back for the Patreons. Bro.
I was going to say that
Please
should
do.
be a Patreon episode.
I regularly do, and frequent listeners of the show now, I put out every episode to Patreon unedited. So they get all the effing and jeffing that before we started recording, we were kind of talking about gets cut out of the main feed. But way back, way back, I think it was literally the first anniversary I put out, and I have no idea where this file is now, but the unedited version of the first episode of the podcast. And I will tell you, it's a train wreck. Like, it's difficult to listen to even now, knowing what was going on. I was still using a Rock Band microphone, like, the video game Rock Band.
No.
Yeah. So that was, I had two mics at that point. One was from Rock Band, which had a USB plug, so it was easy enough for me to plug it into my computer. And then I had just a cardioid mic that I put in between two people, and that was good enough for me at the time. But if you look at that audio file, like, at least from what I remember, there's a lot of like dips in audio where I just cut out the fumbling around of the microphone. But yeah, I totally get that. It's not always the easiest thing at the start to get things going, but you're 5 seasons in.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole idea of the podcast really came from this sense of camaraderie that you find around those two things. Mm-hmm. Like, what is better than a movie night with friends? What is better than sitting out on the porch, sipping on whiskey as the sun sets? Like,
absolutely.
There's something about these two, I don't know, and they feel like such American things. I mean, obviously, like, whiskey started over in Scotland and all that, but like drinking bourbon, watching movies, there's something about it. Like, I remember when I was in college drinking, I don't even remember what it was, horrifically bad whiskey with a terrible gas station cigar and watching Rocky with a bunch of my friends.
That's so
you know
good.
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so when you take those ideas, I think that's what Bob and I really strive to emulate, is like, we're just friends talking about movies and whiskey. Obviously our whiskey knowledge has come a really long way. My movie knowledge has come a really long way, but we're still 5 seasons in, just two regular guys shooting the crap about movies and whiskey.
What has, I mean, aside from, and I think this is a good point for y'all to make too, but like, aside from, just the general structure of the show, which I think it's changed a little bit over the years, but what has been the biggest change that you guys have found since you started filming whiskey?
I mean, honestly, and I'm sure it's like this with you too, but when you first start out with something like a podcast, I think at least I was trying to be like so professional about it and really try to keep us on track and really try to keep us under a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And I think
I totally did that as well. Really, really tried hard. Keep things professional.
I think allowing the podcast to breathe and just trusting the process at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, absolutely.
They go long sometimes, and we know that the people who are into our podcast are gonna like eat that up because they're there for us at this point. So, I mean, we're at the point now where we're like sharing details about our lives and catching up on our week before we get into talking about the movie. And I think in season 1, I'd have been like, no one wants to hear that. So
yeah. And I was gonna say, we honestly will never ever go as long on an episode as we did on Gone with the Wind. So like, we're set, man. We already got the longest episode out of the way. We'll never hit that mark again.
I'm
one
pretty
of the
sure
longest
if you
movies
like,
of all time and one of the longest episodes of all time.
I think you could do like a Dark Side of the Moon, Wizard of Oz thing and just like sync our episode up to the movie, and it would be about the same length.
Yeah, play our episode backwards. It'll go real well.
It's complete nonsense, but let me tell you, it hits all the right beats in Gone with the Wind.
That's right.
That's right, man.
You guys still, I think I probably know the answer to this question, but do you still kind of read or listen to other film commentaries now that you kind of are doing commentary on particular films?
Dude, I'll tell you what. As many movies that have been reviewed by Roger Ebert, read his reviews. He's obviously the GOAT, and for a reason, But I can't tell you how many times Bob and I will be like texting about a movie and he'll bring up a point and I'm like, oh yeah, he read the Ebert review too. Like he just had a way of talking about movies and like digging into the real purpose of the movie, the worldview behind the movie. So like, yes, we do still read some movie reviews. Bob probably reads 80 million times more than I do, but I will at least go and read Roger Ebert.
Yeah, I mean, Perry, I'm sure that you kind of experienced this too as you got more comfortable reviewing things on air, but you try not to read other people's tasting notes when you're drinking a whiskey because you just don't want to be influenced by some like really out there note people are getting. So I think when we first started, the format and the structure of our episodes were so similar to a couple specific like movie related podcasts that I think we listened to them to try to find what we like, but also make sure we weren't copyright infringing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And now it's kind of like I have a couple that I listen to that are for when I really want to get, you know, fancy and heady and highfalutin about movie analysis or whatever, or even, you know, whiskey reviews. But I think we're comfortable enough doing our thing. And like our niche has always been the average consumer. There's a lot of podcasts out there, you know, for movies and for whiskey that will review like this month's release of Maker's Mark Private Select. And like, that's never going to be us because we know that 99% even of bourbon consumers, they'll try a brand one time. And if they don't like it, it's going to be really hard to convince them to go back and try the next batch of Booker's. So like if they try Booker's and they hate it, it's a tough sell after that.
And so, Booker's hasn't exactly been hitting home runs for the past couple of years.
Exactly. So like we want to be consistent with how we present it, and keeping in mind we want to do we try to feature whiskeys that you can find in your local liquor store, that you're not going to have to like travel to Kentucky specifically to buy this whiskey. So I think like finding our groove, finding our niche and sticking to it. We might not always get, you know, like we're not getting shipped BTAC to sample every year, but that's okay because we also know that like, I see you grinning over there.
Sorry.
I was going to say that is Bob says that and then just ignore the back end of season 4. It didn't happen.
That's true.
Here's the thing. Emailing for the antique collection samples is always my most stressful day out of the entire year. Because if you do not get that request in like within minutes after that email hits your inbox, you are screwed. And there are so many people at this point who are trying to get them that I get to the point where I'm like sweating thinking we're not going to get it this year. Like it's not happening. I just barely missed it.
Do you have like a reply copy and pasted and ready to like Control V send?
No, but everything that I send in that email is no more than about one sentence long. Because I always try to be, and I do this with any brand that I request samples from. I always try to be very, very precise in what it is that we're requesting, just because they see a million emails a week, just that does seem like it's been copied and pasted, and I've always tried to be just very personable about it. Hey, hope you've been well. Saw that this press release came out. We'd be really interested in trying it. I mean, it's even gotten us like some of the Goose Island stouts over the past couple of years too, which if you didn't know, they do media samples for those.
Oh, well, I know now. We're going to have to send those emails next year.
And let me tell you, I was not anticipating, and I think by this point I'll probably have talked about it a little bit on the podcast. So I'll send you guys pictures.
Did you get the 150?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
But I did get the Blanton's one.
Oh, man.
Which is so wild. It is the best packaging I have ever seen in my entire life. It comes in like the same hexagon, like a hexagon box that, maybe would have had like a Blanton's bottle in it.
Yeah.
And then you crack it open and the beer bottle has like a Blanton's looking bag around it.
That's incredible.
And they also have like the airplane bottles of Blanton's.
Yeah.
They've also got one of those mini corks hanging around the neck.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
awesome.
So good. It is the absolute best like crossover packaging I've ever seen in my entire life.
No,
and
that's
they
incredible.
they knocked it out of the park so well. It was great. But
I have to say though, like you're talking about sending your emails and always trying to be courteous. I think the one thing that Brad and I have really learned when it comes to working with people in the bourbon industry in particular is I don't think I've ever encountered an industry that has that much money flowing into it every year where the people are as hospitable and willing to spend their time with you as the bourbon industry.
Yeah, I think that's, a big part of bourbon is the fact that it's made in the South and it's made in Kentucky, which, is borderline South. But, with a lot of that comes the Southern hospitality. And I also, work for this tour company where I get to take people to distilleries and get to show them around the Commonwealth, which I, love so dearly. And if they are from out of state and they're not from the South, the number one comment I hear is everybody here is so nice. Everybody is so sweet and so generous. And I'm like, I don't know it any other way. Like I've been up north multiple times, but I mean, the only thing that I truly know and truly love is Kentucky hospitality, Southern hospitality. And it just, it's so much to our advantage, I think, being able to work with these distilleries and being able to work with the brand representatives and everything, just because, 9 times out of 10, they're the same way. They also want to see their brand succeed too. So they're working with us to succeed so that they can in turn also succeed.
Right. Perry, can we like hijack this for 2 seconds? And
absolutely, please do.
Can we talk about Lexington, Kentucky for a minute?
I would love to talk about Lexington, Kentucky, my hometown and my current place of residence.
Brad and I so rarely get to talk about our time in Kentucky, and we live just outside of Lexington. And man, I need some conversation about the Lex in my life right now.
I was going to say,
let's
excuse me, Bob. I lived in Lexington for a year and a half. So,
oh, that's true. I forgot about that apartment you had, man.
Yeah, man.
So I live on the north end of town. I grew up pretty adjacent to Chevy Chase. So right in the kind of the center, the heartbeat of Lexington, where everything was basically 15 minutes away from where you lived. The one thing that I always hear the most about Lexington is that this is the biggest small town ever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 300,000 people that live here, and just about everybody knows everybody else. And
unless you're a UK student, in which
that
case.
is true. That is true. and I think that part of my view of that is a little bit skewed because my mom grew up in Lexington and my dad has basically been in Lexington since he was about 10 years old. So our roots run deep around here, but it's just the perfect size for me. Like that, it could not be. I had, pipe dreams forever living in Chicago and, or even, New York City at one point. And I mean, on the smaller end of that, Louisville, but that's not exactly the bustling, booming city that some of those other metropolitans are. But I couldn't imagine myself living anywhere bigger or smaller than this at this point in my life.
Listen, man, like 3 cheers for the mid-sized city because.
Oh yeah.
So like I live in Akron, Ohio, just outside of Akron now. And Akron is slightly smaller than Lexington. Like it's a little over 200K, I think. And the longer I live here, the more I realize like we have everything that a big city has. We might have less of it. Like there might only be 2 places to go get trendy ramen as opposed to like 40. But like we have everything that you would need. Yeah. And I can get from one end of town to the other in like every day. So it's like it's a win-win.
I will say this too. There is something about a city of this size and just the culture of it all that, and I don't mean to, I feel like I'm doing the opposite by saying this, and I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it is the perfect environment for learning humility and learning how to be a more humble person, because things are not widely out of proportion one way or another, but you do get exposed to the folks who unfortunately do have to live on the streets, and also the people who are in multi-million-dollar mansions on a very frequent basis.
Dude, that's what I was going to say about Lexington. There's like sneaky money in Lexington.
There is.
Right? Because like when you drive around, a lot of the old areas of town that used to be the money are a little bit run down. They're not quite where they used to be. But you just barely get outside of town or into some specific areas for, over on the east side. Dude, there is $1 billion horse industry, and that money, you just don't see it necessarily when you're driving through. But when you've lived there for a little bit, you're like, oh man, there's some cash flow going through this city.
Even after 28 years essentially of being here, I still find myself going to certain parts in and around Lexington where I'm like, I have never noticed that house before. That is a beautiful house. How long has that house been there? But then on the other end of it, it's like, I don't ever really go down those streets. I don't ever really go into those neighborhoods that, people may consider low income or, more inner city or whatever. But I also try to make an effort to be very aware of the people that are around me at any given time. Like it whether it's, going a certain way to drop Eden off at daycare, or just taking the time to observe where certain people are living at one point or another. It is so important to me to be conscious of the community around you. And bourbon has also really kind of been very helpful in teaching me about community and being aware of the community as well.
Yeah, man. Hey, I just want to say before we move on, this episode is going to do numbers in Lexington. This is
for sure.
This thing's going to blow up at Bourbon and Toulouse.
Yeah, well, okay. So I was going to say, we've been talking about Lexington for a while. The thing I loved about Lexington more than anything else was the food. I mean, some of the food y'all have is
underrated
out of this world.
Food city. Yeah,
absolutely.
Bourbon and Toulouse. I mean, I know this is a Southern thing in general. For me, this was new. Cookout.
Oh, man.
Like you got what's Tally Ho's? If you want a hoe, you go grab a hoe at Tally Ho's. Like,
okay, I want to clarify what Tally Ho is. And this is not the first time I've had to do this on this podcast. But Tally Ho is a greasy spoon restaurant. It is nothing more and nothing less. But they have the vernacular around it is very funny. I mean, it's basically built around college kids.
It's where all the college kids go to get hoes.
It's thanks, Brad. It's also where all the college kids go at 2 a.m. after a long night of drinking to try and sober up a little bit. Works about 9 times out of 10, maybe 8, depending on the situation. But, dude, even sober, Tally Ho is some of my favorite food in town.
Oh man, it's so good. And so spoiler alert, Brad and I, we went to grad school. We were in seminary, and we were at Asbury in Wilmore, which is right outside of Lexington.
Yeah.
So we would be going to Tally Ho at 2 a.m. completely sober, and pretending that we were going to get work done for our classes. But then, of course, Tally Ho has no Wi-Fi, because why would they, right?
No, they do not.
We'd go there and be like, yeah, we're totally going to get stuff done. And then we would just eat, a triple cheeseburger and bacon fries.
Yeah.
Bob, I believe it's called a hoe burger.
No
Gary,
response from Brad.
You're getting such good content right now, man.
Mostly because Bob's not saying anything back to you,
right? No, but
I'm
Perry,
not taking the bait, dude.
Perry, if you had somebody coming into Lexington and you had to point them to one spot, like where would you point them to and be like, bro, you can't miss out on this restaurant?
So the one that I've been saying so much over the past few years, of course, is OBC Kitchen. When did you guys leave Lexington or leave the Lexington area?
I moved back in 2017, but I spent a lot of time at OBC eating bacon in a glass.
Yeah. That's the year that they opened, I think. 2017, 2016, something like that. But
see, the trick is to show up right when the kitchen closes and be like, "Oh, I wanted some bacon," and then they'll just bring you the bacon that's left over. It was a true grad student trick that I employed numerous times. Yeah,
it's a good move. OBC is just one of my favorite places on earth. Bourbon selection aside, the food is top notch 100% of the time. But I think if you're looking for a non-bourbon experience, I think Ramsey's is probably the place that I would point people the most often.
Oh, Ramsey's.
Because it's just all very homegrown cooking and very close. I mean, it just feels like you go to like your grandmother's house for Sunday brunch or Sunday lunch or whatever. And like the hot browns always
I was
feel
just going to say,
genuine.
man. Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can go to the Brown Hotel in Louisville where the hot brown was originally created and get, that thing. But my ideal hot brown will always be Ramsey's.
I'm so glad that we can be talking about this. This is exactly what I wanted to come on here and talk about.
I will say, I'm going to give a shout out to one restaurant that I never went to. It might have opened since we moved away. But I was down in Lexington for a wedding like 2 or 3 months ago. And me and my buddy were like, let's go eat somewhere. And I saw a place called Big Kahuna Hawaiian Barbecue.
Oh,
have you been there?
Gosh. Big Kahuna Hawaiian Barbecue.
I walked in and this should be to my shame, but it didn't click. The name didn't click for me until I turned around and saw the life-size, like head, like gianter than life-size painting of Samuel L. Jackson on the wall from Pulp Fiction.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
I was like,
about that.
Oh, I get it now. But beyond that was some daggone good barbecue, bro.
Dude, my favorite, I love that place and I could probably eat it once a week if I could afford it and if I weren't trying to lose weight. But my favorite thing there is their
I don't know, man. I just got
the fried pork.
Yeah, that's what I got. I was gonna say I got their cold but fried pork sandwich and just slathered it in their barbecue sauce. Bro, it's out of this world.
It sounds so good. Oh, now I'm hungry all over again.
Yeah, we got to take a break.
For real.
We'll be back in a few.
The one thing that I wanted to touch on too, and I think that this is something that is it's very prevalent in the whiskey community, but I don't think that it's talked about very often. I don't know the best way to phrase this, but there are a lot of churchgoers who are very much into bourbon, right? And there are a lot of ministers who are also still very into bourbon. I'm not going to name names so I don't out anybody, but
Harry, I was going to say, I literally today I'm a church leader up in Delaware, Ohio, just north of Columbus. And we had a 2-day like coaching training seminar with some guys that are district hired to come in, and we hosted it at my house. And after the session last night, before they left to go back to their hotel, we drank some barrel bourbon together.
Oh,
then today in the middle, and we just had a 25-minute break. And I was like, do you guys want to have a little scotch? And so we had some of the Cadbull estate. So
doing the Lord's work.
To put it simply, yes, Christians like to drink alcohol.
So what I'm trying to get at, and it's nothing that I feel like it needs to be talked down on, because I mean it's a part of many people's lives. It's part of our lives, and I do think that it's an interesting perspective to ask you guys, like, having been through seminary, how did that kind of shape or change not only your relationship with whiskey and drinking in general, but also kind of like how you wanted to use it moving forward content wise?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, I think for us, getting trained in like Bible and theology was like super integral to our ability to read texts, like in general. Like you have to go through so many different classes on, hermeneutics and like parsing out ancient cultures versus modern cultures. And understanding like the flow of literature and things like that, and reading different genres and things like that. And that translates so perfectly to watching movies. And I honestly, like, we've had so many people reach out to us and say, hey, like, my favorite thing about your podcast is, you know, you do like your opening segment where you talk about performances and then you drink whiskey. And when we come back from that, we kind of close out with a little bit deeper analysis, if it's there to be parsed out.
Yeah.
And people are always like, man, you guys can just see things that I've never seen in a movie. And honestly, I think if we are able to do that at all, it's because we've been so kind of thoroughly trained to look for those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I really love about kind of applying our background to this show, because you can find those themes, like you could find religious themes in almost any movie if you want to, but
for sure.
But I think like beyond that, it's just kind of learning how to read a text and like what's the director and the screenwriter trying to say here, and what are the deeper things going on. I don't know, Brad, does that capture your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. When it comes to the movies, there's a certain level of training that you just can't ignore, that being able to read movies takes time. It takes skill and training. And the fact that we learned how to interpret this, like Bob said, ancient biblical stuff that was written in Hebrew, was written in Greek, to move on from that to reading a movie, like here's the beautiful thing about Christianity, about the Bible, is that it's all about storytelling. It's all about conveying this message that God has given the world of how he wants to interact with the world. And he does it through storytelling. Jesus constantly used stories in his ministry when he was here on earth. So like, yeah, we learned how to read stories in seminary, and then we just kept doing that as we watched stories, now. I think the other half of our podcast, because we don't just watch films, we also drink whiskey. This is the part that can become a little contentious for Christians, right? Because, the movement of the 50s, 60s, 70s was like this attitude of like, don't smoke, drink, or chew, or go with girls who do, right? like that's, Perry might have never heard that statement before, but
if I have, it's been a really long time since I have.
Yeah. So like there's this attitude in an older generation of Christianity and in current young Christians in certain pockets of like, you just don't drink alcohol. It's bad for you. It's a bad example. It's a bad witness. And like, I don't know. Do you mind if I get a little theological here for a second, Perry?
Please go ahead. I asked this question with the intent of seeing how many different avenues this could go down. So however you feel so led.
Yeah. So like, I guess for me, I have two guiding principles when it comes to alcohol. And the first really comes from the Bible, and this idea of like everything in moderation, and don't do things that are going to make your brother or sister fall. So like, honestly, my neighbor that lives next to me, after getting to know him for a while, he shared with me that he'd been an alcoholic for like 40 years. Mm-hmm. Dude's in his like 70s now. When we had him over for dinner, do you think I'm going to talk about whiskey a bunch and like offer, like bring out a glass and be like, oh, Rick, I know you don't drink, but I'm going to have a drink. Like you're just not going to do that. So that's like the first guiding principle. Don't mess with people who it's a genuine issue for.
Yeah.
But the second principle, and this is what is meaningful for me. It comes back to what I said earlier in the episode, that whiskey is a tool for bringing people together. And I think that when you really get at the heart of the gospel, what Jesus was trying to do in his ministry, what the other people who wrote the Bible were trying to get at, the message they're trying to portray, in this book, in a part of the Bible, it's a book called 2 Corinthians, they talk about this ministry of reconciliation, that people, humans, are separated from one another by the darkness of the world, by the sin in the world, by the crappy things we do to one another. We're separated, we're pushed apart. And God is calling us to reconcile, A, between us and him, and B, between each other, between, human A and human B.
Yeah.
And so I genuinely think that when you are using, whiskey or alcohol in general, in a healthy way. You're using it in moderation. You're not getting totally trashed. You're in control of your senses, but you use it to reconcile people together, to draw people together. I can't tell you how many people are vastly different than me, ethnically, economically, gender. Like there are people so different than me that I have no business getting to know or talking to, but man, they like whiskey. I like whiskey. Boom. We're good friends.
So to kind of speak to that point, it's funny because, and I think that this is just something that a lot of people go through the older they get, but the older they get and the more that I've gotten into bourbon, the more I've kind of mellowed out, if that makes sense. Like, and I'm not saying that it's specifically one facet or another of my life. I mean, I did grow up in a cooperative Baptist church, so it was much more accepting than Southern Baptists. Not saying that Southern Baptists are, all hellfire and brimstone, but I mean, we had plenty of women who served in the church. We had gay folks too, who were very active in church community. And so, partially from that, seeing a very accepting church, I was able to kind of reconcile, what I thought about the people around me and how I felt towards my neighbors, but also just there is just that kind of magical little thing about bourbon that like breaks down barriers and finally gets you to go, well, let's just focus on the things that we have in common and the things that can bring us together as opposed to the things that pull us apart. And so much of that, religious or not, is prevalent in our society today, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that bourbon is, the end all be all for getting people to sit down and have conversations, because it's not that black and white. But for those who are able to, I mean, it's not a bad way to start.
No, I could definitely think of worse.
Oh, well, meth.
Nailed it.
And check.
There it is.
But it is kind of hard to, and I think that it's something that a lot of Christians struggle with, but this notion of like, well, you can't be a Christian and drink. You can't, those two things don't go hand in hand. Out there you go and have a glass of bourbon with dinner, or relax on your Friday evening or whatever. But I do think that as long as it's being presented as moderation, that is a much more acceptable model in all walks of life.
Well, and also, we've gotten very serious and very deep tonight here, but I just want to say, for the record, it's also just delicious. Yeah. And it's really, really fun to do. Like, I don't think we don't need to like hold those two things in tension. Bourbon is really, really delicious to drink. You should try it.
If you haven't tried it yet.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like we're talking about this idea of it bringing separate people together. I don't know if anybody has followed. I'm sure a few people have. He's kind of famous. But Joe Rogan's whole ordeal with CNN and the horse storm and all that. So he has Sanjay Gupta, their head medical correspondent, on. Yep. And dude, him and Joe are getting into it on this podcast. But like halfway through, what does Sanjay pull out? Clearly some assistant bought this for him, but he pulls out a bottle of Doc Swinson's Alter Ego. And they start drinking it together. And in the middle of this argument over politics and COVID and all this stuff, these two guys are just drinking it. And Joe's like, hell yeah, man, this is some good whiskey. Thanks, dude. And I saw that moment and I just like was like, yes, like this is what bourbon can do.
Yeah. And I think that it's helped me forge stronger friendships. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say that like it mellows me out or has mellowed me out, because it is a common thread for a lot of us. And it gives us that opportunity to step back and go, man, this is really tasty. What were we talking about? Like, just kind of not take yourself so seriously for a little while.
I mean, that's like half the reason that we structure our show the way we do, because we'll start to get a little bit heated about Brad's horrific takes on, like a Steven Spielberg classic being
Toy
bad.
Story.
Yeah, whatever it might be. And I'm just hitting that point where I say, all right, man, I need a break here. And we'll drink whiskey and we'll come back from the break. And I'm like, it's all good. You can have your opinion. It might be trash, but we come out the other side stronger, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because Steven Spielberg drinking with a 10-year-old. It's just the best thing in the world, man. Getting them drunk.
Perry, what's your take on the film E.T.?
Okay. It's not that I dislike it, but I don't have any nostalgia for it.
Come on, let's go. Come on, Perry.
So.
Yeah, all right, that's enough.
I'm getting into muddy waters here. It's just not my favorite movie, but I still find some enjoyment in it, and I do like, not to sound wishy-washy, but I do like the general message and themes behind it of family and family being from all walks of life and everything, because I do think that that's an important thing to bring to the table. But at the same time, it's just really not my cup of tea. It's not something that I grew up with loving. So like I said, I don't have a whole lot of nostalgia for it.
Yeah, no, those are like super important values. And I just wish they had been communicated well. That's all I want.
Bob,
I think
feel like
he's
they
talking
did
about
communicate it well, though.
I just want to make sure that you're not interpreting what Brad's saying as like you're not communicating them well.
No. I know he's
right.
talking about the movie itself. Yeah.
This is why I love talking with Perry, because you always kind of walk the middle ground between us. You do such a good job of taking both of our thoughts and phrasing them much better than either of us ever do. We would never argue if Perry was around more.
You know what? I don't know how to have this portion of the conversation, but I don't like confrontation. For one. So if I can walk that middle ground and find ways to, appease the majority, that's more important to me than having opinions so loud and boisterous that they drown out everybody else. And I'm not saying that you guys are always at odds, and I'm not trying to paint it like you're always at each other's throats, but because you're absolutely not, and you guys have really wonderful conversation on the podcast. But again, community is so much more important to me than anything that could separate us. Conversation, genuine, real conversation where you are bouncing off of another person and having well-formed arguments and opinions and thoughts, and that is so invigorating to me and so much fun. And it's one of those things that you kind of don't get as much of a chance to do once you leave college, if you're not going into an academic sort of field. But it's like the older I've gotten, the more that I have craved it, and the more that I've really wanted to be more analytical. And when I join you guys on Film and Whiskey, that is me like going back to, my classes in college, having discussions over, Plato's Cave and The Matrix, and getting into our detective fiction class, which still one of my favorite classes I ever took. But
well, that sounds awesome.
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. We went all the way from Poe up into like the hard-boiled detective stuff. And it was just, my professor was amazing and really encouraged just great, deep conversation, deep analytical conversation. And so much of that shaped how I think about things and how I analyze things, and how I'm able to sit down and hold any kind of conversation. But I think
to your point though, like, I don't think that our podcast would work. Like, this dynamic wouldn't work if Brad and I weren't like best friends. The whole thing that makes this podcast tick is that you know that we love each other deeply, and like the arguments we have about movies are always good natured. And like I have listened to just the most like nails on a chalkboard arguments over things like this that ultimately are just like, movies are there to entertain and whiskey is there to entertain. And at the end of the day, if there isn't some sort of communal aspect behind that, like it's not worth debating. The thing that makes it fun is the fact that you know that on the other end of the mic is like your best friend.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, it really comes down to trust, right? Like, and this might sound dumb, but like, even an opinion on a movie, like if I was doing this with someone I didn't know, there would come a point where I'd be like, man, he gave this movie a 9. I gave it a 5. Like, and he just jumped on my opinion. Like, does he just think I'm not smart? Does he think I'm, not able to form a cohesive, thought process? And no, it's like, I know Bob, I trust Bob. And so when we're just dumping on each other, I think there's a sense of like, Bob and I both know that there are certain things we will just never agree on. And when we hit that wall, we just start making fun of each other. and that just works. Because we're not actually so attached to our opinions that it would ever affect how I feel about him and how he feels about me.
I'm just waiting for Bob to chime in and say, no, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I'll let that part go unsaid. No, but like, I think at the end of the day, our main goal is, if we ever feel like the podcast is getting highfalutin or, elitist in any way, then if we're just not having fun with it. Like then we've just failed. Like, we want this to be a podcast by 2 regular people for regular people. And the day that we are like way too far down the rabbit hole of tourist filmmakers and hard to attain whiskeys is the day that we need to just like hang it up and go drink Old Crow and just enjoy ourselves again.
Well, I think that's what is so cool about what you guys do with whiskey makers or whiskey faces in the industry. Instead of having a lot of filmmakers on the podcast, or big or small, what you are doing is taking people who love whiskey and love film and then talking about that with them, right? And trying to remove yourself from some of the more highbrow conversations that some people might have. And one of the things that we have kind of done on the back half of this year is had this mentality, had this kind of spoken and unspoken mantra of keep bourbon fun, because it can be serious at times and it can really help people from time to time. But at the same time, it's a luxury, right? We don't need bourbon to survive. And it's a way that we kind of fill our spare time and spend our spare dollars. So it's very, and I totally agree with you guys. If it ever gets to the point where it's just a slog to get through stuff, it's just not worth it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really glad you brought up the interviews, because like there is a sense, I honestly think we have a super cool niche in the bourbon world. Because like if you're in the bourbon industry and the bourbon podcasting world, you've heard Peggy No Stevens talk about starting the Bourbon Trail. You've heard her talk about her experiences in the whiskey world and all that. But have you ever heard her talk about The Godfather? Because if you haven't, come tune into the episode where Peggy No Stevens talks about The Godfather with us. Like, there's something so cool about being able to talk to people about movies that they love, movies that help shape them into who they are. And it genuinely does just give you a different take on these people. But I also love, Barry, that you were like, that the way you said, you guys don't interview filmmakers and stuff. The way you said it made it seem like we have a choice. We choose not to.
Is it not that? Is it,
well, I mean,
is it the opposite?
after Brad trashed E.T., Spielberg wrote back and he was like, I'm never coming back again.
He drew a little middle finger on it.
Yeah,
It's really detailed.
Here's the reality. Bob mentioned this earlier. Like, the hospitality you receive in the bourbon world is crazy, and it's a multi-billion, capital B $billion industry, just like Hollywood. but the chances of a normal podcast, like at this point, I think, based on recent statistics, Film and Whiskey is in like the top 20, 25% of all podcasts in terms of downloads, which is psychotic. I can't believe that. But even like a podcast of that size, we couldn't get Matthew McConaughey's second cousin's child who was in a school play.
You never know. You never know. Life finds a way.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Hey,
no, funny story about that.
I was going to get one reference in before the night ended.
You gotta, right? Now that Spielberg's not coming on the show, you got to fill that role for us, man.
Yeah, I don't do a very good Goldblum, but I'll just say his lines.
Right. So we actually, it hit like season 3, and we were thinking, we've had a lot of bourbon industry people on the show. We should at least just shoot our shot. Like, let's reach out to some publicists that we can find their contact info and try to get someone from the film industry on here. And so I start thinking like, all right, well, obviously we're not just going to start with like Denzel and Tom Hanks. So we got to work our way out through the ranks here. And I'm thinking, all right, maybe we try to get like some cinematographers or some like film composers to come on and talk about their craft. That'd be really cool. And then it's like, all right, well, John Williams is a definite no. That's not going to happen. So like I start thinking of, all right, who are some composers that I really like? And I'm not going to say the name of the guy that we reached out to, but he's an up and comer. Like I think he's been nominated for an Oscar or 2 now, but
wow.
2 years ago when we reached out, like you had to really know film to know who this guy was.
Sure.
And we reached out to his publicist and we were like, hey, we just a half hour of his time. That's all we need. We'll work around his schedule. And it was just like, he's not available now and will probably never be available in the future. Like that was the email that we got back.
So it was definitely Hans Zimmer then.
It was, yeah, this up and comer.
Absolutely. No, actually, sorry. It was Howard Shore.
Yes. Right. No, but
I'm sorry,
just
we all
to
misspoke.
highlight,
It was Danny Elfman.
Yes. But just to highlight the difference between like the bourbon world and the world of Hollywood, I should have just printed it and framed this email because it sounded professional, but the gist of it was he is not available now and will likely never be available to you in the future. It's like, all right, cool.
The implied you there.
Yes. I've never gotten an infinite no before. That was something that was really fresh and new to me. Yeah. So good times.
It's at the same time heartbreaking and uplifting. Because it's like it's a good step forward to go, maybe I do need to sit back down for a few minutes. But at the same time, it's like, man, what do we got to do? But so there are a couple people that I want to hear you guys talk to, and I think would be really cool to hear you guys talk to. And one of them I want to interview. Well, I guess both of them because I'm related to one of them. But my cousin, one of my cousins on my dad's side, is a short filmmaker and works for HBO, and has submitted a lot of his work to film festivals, and actually shot a really cool little short horror film here in our house back in July of this year, I guess. Maybe last year by the time this episode comes out. I'm not entirely sure. But he's incredibly well-versed in the industry. And I mean, knows his stuff and is able to, he literally was able to do every job that needed to be done on that shoot. Now it was a very small shoot, but still it was so cool to see him put everything that he had learned over his 20 plus years of work in the industry to good use. And it was really, really cool to be a part of it. So maybe I'll try to get you guys contact.
Yeah, man. Send him our way. I do have to ask though, what's it like knowing that your house is the setting of a horror film now? Is that like,
yeah.
Is that like a badge of honor, or is that kind of like an insult? Like,
so neither, because my my brother wore the scary costume, the scary mask for it. And so I can't take it seriously because I know of the guy who is under the mask.
Right.
And how goofy he is. And I can't be like, oh yeah, I'd be really scared of that thing if it can't. It's a creepy looking monster.
Right.
It'll give you some nightmares. But
I just imagine like someone pulling up to my house and being like, "Hey, man, this would be a really great setting for a horror movie." Like, all right, dude. It just sounds like a backhanded compliment there.
Well, I don't know the best way to explain it without kind of spoiling too much of it, but it is the setting of the house is not as important as much as the participants in the story are.
Okay.
The house is just kind of a vehicle for the story to be happening in.
All right.
Like it's not. Yeah, he didn't like look at our house and go, "Hey, you got some cracked shutters up there. Why don't we take it for a spin?" But the other person that I really want to see you guys interview is Chris Stuckman, who is another, I guess for you guys, fellow Ohioan.
He lives in Akron. He lives like 5 minutes from me.
Really?
Yeah, man. Listen, if you have any pull with the Stuckman hive out there, like,
I'm working on it, because
work those channels, because we really want to get Chris Stuckman on the show, man.
He's just somebody that I admire so much. And last year with his revelations about his past with the Jehovah's Witness, and how he kind of came out on the other end of that. It's so fascinating to me, and it's so just invigorating seeing somebody who has overcome that kind of adversity and still is very confident in who they are and has been able to kind of reason with the things that they dealt with growing up, and still have such a passion for life and the thing that they love, which I mean for him is filmmaking. And it's so cool. I have loved his YouTube channel forever. The work that he does is so cool and so much fun, and I really, really want to see you guys get to sit down with him.
Well, yeah, that would be so cool. I will say we talked about how we haven't gotten in with the movie industry. The two people that we've gotten in with that I would say are movie industry adjacent, if you will. Josh Larson is a professional film critic. He came on our show. I mean, what was it, Bob? Season 1, maybe early season 2.
Yeah, it was very early on.
And he was just the coolest guy. I was so blown away by how professional he is, how down to earth he is. So big shout out to Josh Larson. He's over on the Film Spotting podcast.
Okay.
And then our second one, and this was just wild that we have had him on twice because we love his stuff. Patrick H. Willems.
Oh my gosh.
My dude Patrick is one of the coolest guys in the world, and he's been on 2 episodes. And we just feel so lucky to have talked with him. We just reviewed the movie Charade with him, and he is super down to earth, super good guy. And so the few contacts we have had in the movie industry have genuinely been great ones.
Well, I know that my cousin would be a really good contact for you guys to have, excuse me. But man, Chris, I mean, just even getting buddy with Chris a little bit would be so cool.
Oh yeah. I shot my best shot with him this time around because we just reviewed the movie Signs like a month ago.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Famously his favorite movie of all time. Yeah. So I sent an email. I was like, Chris, my guy, fellow Akronite, we're about to talk about Signs. Please come on. And it didn't happen. So we got to find other ways to gently pressure him into appearing on the show.
It's a shame. I feel like he's never going to do Hilariosities again, which were some of the best content on YouTube. And I think my favorite video from him of all time is his review of The Fanatic with, oh, shoot. I'm telling you, I can't.
Is that the Travolta one?
That's the Travolta one.
Yeah.
Where he's got the awful bowl cut and mullet.
And I think his first line in the movie is like, "I have to go poop."
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
That's like how the movie opens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go watch that review if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it yet. You don't need to see the movie after watching Chris's review, just because it's so it's a work of art in and of itself. But anyway, that's my little wish list, my dream guest for you guys.
You know what, though? Like, when you mentioned the hilariosities thing, and I think Brad and I kind of went through a similar thing. We were doing a little short series for a while on bad movies. We were just trying to pick bad movies it was right when the pandemic started. So we were kind of doing like watch parties with people in our community that wanted to come on and watch a bad movie with us. It was something fun to do. But I think we really quickly realized that it's just so much more life-giving to find a movie to stick up for and defend and try to win people over with a good movie.
Absolutely.
Than to just take something down. And like, yeah, it's fun to watch bad movies sometimes and laugh about it. But I honestly think like some of the best feedback I've ever gotten from the show was somebody wrote in and told us that they watched Citizen Kane because of our show. And They were like, honestly, I thought it was kind of boring. And I was like, all right, cool. And I kept reading and they said, but I listened to your episode and I went back and I watched it a second time with what you said in mind. And I liked it. I don't think it's the best movie of all time, but I would give it like an 8 out of 10. And honestly,
wow,
it doesn't sound like a rave review, but somebody went back and watched an 80-year-old movie 2 times because of something that Brad and I said about it. And that's a huge honor.
That is some really genuine feedback that is not very evident in a lot of podcasts. So.
For sure.
Call us influencers, Perry.
I refuse. No, I'm just kidding.
Making people begrudgingly like classics since 2019.
Giving classic movies a 8 out of 10, B-.
Perry, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
because you're gonna come back on the show at some point because we love having you.
I love being on the show.
I want you to call your shot now, though. Like, what movie do you want to do next time you come back? We'll let you pick this time.
Oh, I think we might have chosen when I was on for Almost Famous, but That Thing You Do.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah.
So,
we did talk about that
to wrap up the trilogy of musical episodes that I've done. But That Thing You Do is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's funny because I've seen the non-extended cut, so I guess the theatrical cut. But I actually love the extended cut just slightly more. It's just a more fulfilling watching experience for me, I guess. But also being a musician and seeing the struggles of trying to work your way up in a local music scene and I'm not going to say that I've had any success outside of Lexington, Kentucky. That is not true at all. But like, it's tough, man. It is a tough go at it, trying to convince people that they should go to a show with original music and, have people be into it. But there's just something so true and down to earth about that movie that I love. And I think that it couldn't have been captured by anybody else other than Tom Hanks, in all honesty. But it really, really just shows the drive and passion and the love and adoration for being an up and coming musician and being so confident and passionate behind the music that you write, and then things never working out exactly the way that you want them to. Like it's such a tried and true tale for musicians.
I just rewatched it again. I'd say like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most underrated thing about it is people don't often talk about just how good the song is, because the entire movie is structured around the fact that is just a perfect piece of pop songwriting.
Yep.
Like, they play that song legitimately 30 times in a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get old.
I was not annoyed with it by the end of the movie. And that's really saying something.
And there are so few film soundtracks that I want to listen to on a regular basis. I could put that song on just about daily and still find it entertaining.
Do you think that song is the whole soundtrack? Like, they just, when you buy the soundtrack album, it's just a one track, it's a single.
13 songs in a row on
right.
one CD.
This is our EP, That Thing You Do.
It comes with a
Guys,
with a built-in loop function.
Can I tell you about the disappointing experience I just had watching that thing you do?
Oh no. Yeah, you can, but oh no.
So my wife and I, we got a free trial for Hulu for a month, and we sat down and I'm looking through and that thing you do pops up. I'm like, oh, we should watch this. I love this movie. Haven't seen it in a long time. So my wife and I sit down, we watch about an hour of it. It's like an hour and 50-minute movie. And we're tired, so we go to bed. And I asked my wife, I'm like, well, do you want to finish it with me? She's not super into like musicals or even movies with a ton of music in them. And she's like, honestly, I just want to watch it to find out if Tom Hanks is the bad guy. And I was like, that is a valid reason for watching the rest of this movie. But the problem is, like, a week later, we sit down to watch it, and it's not popping up on my recently viewed. It's not anywhere. They took it off the platform and it's not streaming anywhere for free. You have to rent it on freaking Amazon. I was so pissed. I'm like hitting the search bar and typing it in. Can't find it. I'm like, Hulu's the worst platform ever. Does it keep the movies you were watching?
I mean, that's so angry. That's something that you need to own on digital. I feel like, regardless.
I mean, probably.
And I want to give credit where credit is due to the just real worldness and the quality of this movie. The first time that I watched it, it got finished, and I looked at my dad and I said, "Well, what happened afterwards? What happened to the Wonders after they broke up?" I was like,
"Yep,
it's a movie. Like they're not real." And I was like, I mean, I can't go listen to his solo stuff after they broke up.
Yeah.
There's no Imagine. There's no.
there's no
Let's Die.
There's no Plastic Ono band coming from the Oneaters.
Have you guys?
Yes. I have. I have watched all 8 hours of Get Back on consecutive days. I knew exactly where you were going, man.
I love it so much. I really just I'm
so good.
So in love with it.
So
and
good.
It's such a long watch and it takes forever to get through. But as a musician, of course, you're always like, what I wouldn't give to go back in time and sit down with the Beatles and watch them write their music. It's as close as you're ever going to get. It's as close as you will ever be to sitting down with, I almost said Paul McCartney and John Lennon as they write one of their hit songs.
Yeah.
And it's so, I thought at first, before I knew really anything of it, I thought it was going to be like a standard documentary. They're going to interview people. It's going to cut to footage. And then, it's going to be like what you would normally see. But the fact that it's like raw footage, it makes it so real for me.
Well, and it's one of those things too, where you've got to give credit to Peter Jackson just on a filmmaking standpoint, because they had 60 hours of footage to cut down, and I think they said 150 hours of audio to cut down to make this 8-hour documentary. And like, is it too long? Probably. It's a little shaggy. I thought the second part was a little too drawn out, but what he's doing from a filmmaking standpoint too, it relies on the fact that you know who the Beatles are, and you probably know a little bit of the history of these recording sessions, but it also relies on the fact that you know what's going on like outside the parameters of the movie. Like know that John Lennon dies, 10 years from that point. And so when you have these moments where he's just kind of letting the footage go on and on while Paul and John are singing Two of Us in funny Jamaican accents at each other, it's like
through clenched teeth,
and clenched teeth, and
God, I love that.
It just becomes such a weirdly, profoundly touching moment, because you know what's coming. You know the breakup's coming, and then you also know that John's gonna die. And I just really love that he doesn't hammer that home. He doesn't hit you over the head with it, but just as a viewer, it really makes those moments even more special.
It almost feels like, without it being intentional. And I mean, in some ways it probably is based on the direction of it, but it's almost like we're being guided through that as Paul McCartney, because he is so cognizant of the fact that they are on their last legs. I mean, he is devastated by the fact that this band is not going to last much longer.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see it, you can feel it just in the way that he's trying to grasp at straws and pull everything together. And there's that one scene where George has left and John's gone, and it's just him and Ringo sitting in the studio, and he just goes, and then there were two. And it's just this slow zoom in on his face, and his eyes are watering up. And it's just like, this is our end. This is the guy who makes all of this not just worthwhile, but makes us feel the human side of it all. And how tough it was for these three guys who were, by the way, I am as old now as John Lennon and Paul McCartney were when the Beatles broke up. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Isn't that nutty?
To think about how much they accomplished in their life by the time they were my age right now.
Right.
And
which means that Paul wrote Yesterday, like wherever you were 5 years ago.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's just nuts, man.
Yeah. And
here's
go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, here's a crazy fact that I literally learned today. This is just like serendipitous. It's crazy that we're talking about John being assassinated, the Beatles, all this. I mentioned earlier that we had some church coaches that were helping us with some stuff, right? Literally today.
Yeah.
This guy that was meeting with us did ministry in Buffalo, New York. He partook in a prison ministry where he has spent multiple different visits ministering to the killer of John Lennon.
Oh my gosh.
No joke, knows the dude, has a personal relationship with him and told me about him. Apparently this guy like genuinely loves Jesus now. He's going to be in prison the rest of his life. Like he has talked to him about killing John Lennon. I was just like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, the wildest thing. He literally said that and my jaw just dropped. I was like, wait, you know the guy who killed John Lennon? He goes, yeah, man, did prison ministry with him. Like, yeah, you know, because why not?
Because I've got an off day, you know?
yeah, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nutty. Guy told him that like when it happened, he was off all of his meds. He has, you know, some mental things going on. He was off all of his meds, and I don't even know if he really knew who he was killing. It was the wildest thing. And now here we are talking about it like 6 hours later.
I don't know how to respond to this. Like,
yeah,
honestly,
how do you
it's just
segue
like,
out of that?
That sat so heavy, like on my chest.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I just had like a ton landing on my chest. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that or respond to that. Other than
did you when you emailed us to like set up, we were like, oh, we're gonna finally interview Film and Whiskey. Did you have any idea this is where we would go?
The fact that I'm 6 degrees of separation from the guy who killed John Lennon, absolutely not.
Yeah. This is what you get for making us wait 2 years to come on your show. We're gonna drop this bomb on you.
I almost said something really, really dark after that, so I'm gonna refrain from that. I'll tell you what I was thinking after we get done recording here. But guys, I do think we need to go ahead and get wrapped up. But genuinely, I am so sorry it took so long to get you guys on the podcast. But thank you so much for the support that you've given This Is My Bourbon podcast over the past 2 years. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and be a part of Film and Whiskey as well on multiple occasions. It has been so much fun to see you guys grow and to see you guys just cement who you are as a podcast in this world. And I am enjoying so much of what you all do. And I really, really cannot wait for the next 5 seasons of Film and Whiskey. Surely there's enough movies to talk about to fill that space, right?
And there might be enough whiskeys to talk about.
Maybe, if we're lucky. But no, where can go ahead, Bob.
I was just gonna say, man, this has been a blast. We're gently ribbing you about the 2 years thing. Honestly, like this was totally worth it. Sitting and talking to you for this long. It's so nice to kind of get out of like the standard, you know, format that we have and just kind of shoot the breeze with somebody. So man, so good to hang out with you tonight.
And I'm sure we'll do it again before too long. I mean, there's no reason not to. But of course, people can find the podcast on whatever podcast app they're listening to This My Bourbon Podcast on. But where can they find you guys on social media as well?
Yeah, so we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Film Whiskey, whiskey with an E. We have not.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've mentioned the E.
I know. I mean, it's an important distinction for our international listeners. But yeah,
we're not a Scottish podcast.
Could be all about Maker's Mark.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Brad, you want to mention our Discord?
I was going to say, if you really want to engage with us, if you know what Discord is, then just jump in any of our show notes, get on our server. We spend so much time interacting with our listeners. It's an absolute blast over there. If you've never used Discord, it's genuinely just like a much more secure version of social media. You only interact with the people you want to, and if you don't like it, you can just leave.
It's true.
So it's a really cool way to connect with people who are like-minded, who enjoy the things you enjoy. And if you like movies and whiskey and memes about our podcast, come join our Discord.
We'll drop links for everything below in the description as well. But once again, thank you guys so much, Bob and Brad. It's been so much fun hanging out with y'all tonight. And we'll definitely see you real soon.
Yeah, Perry, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man.
Eric, I think it's time that we do the first review of 2022.
Ooh, baby, I've been excited about this.
Is this the first review? I think it is the first review.
I believe so.
I said that and I immediately backpedaled on that statement.
Maybe.
Oh wait, no, we reviewed the Jack Daniel's Coy Hill.
Oh yeah, but that was a bottle from 2021.
Well, that's true.
This is an actual bottle from 2022,
and that is also true. So we are going to be reviewing the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A122, which was sent to us very courteously by Heaven Hill.
I love that they just send whole bottles.
It's really nice. And it makes it okay for me that they send just samples of like the Larceny Barrel Proof and like the Parker's Heritage Collection, because it's like guaranteed that I get 3 free bottles of bourbon.
They know you are Elijah Craig Barrel Proof boy. They know you.
But this one is clocking in at 120.8 proof. And according to the press release that we got, this is the 10th year of doing Elijah Craig Barrel Proof wide releases. So they have done in the past, and thankfully we've been able to try them here and there, like gift shop releases that have been barrel proof, which are absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like, and going far back enough, they weren't, labeling them like A112.
It was just barrel proof.
It was just barrel proof, yeah. But this is continuing the trend that we have seen over the past year or so of lower proof Elijah Craig barrel proofs. So this is 120.8. And I got to thinking about this because I think that this is one of the major criticisms of Elijah Craig barrel proof right now. Is this because we are being faced with the fact that there is a master distiller at Heaven Hill who is not necessarily well accustomed to more barrel proof products? Because Conor O'Driscoll is Irish.
I was going to say he's an Irish whiskey guy, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of Irish whiskey that goes too hard in the paint. And it usually sits around like 90 proof, 80 proof, something like that. So what do you think? Do you think that this is just something that we're going to expect from his tenure at Heaven Hill, or is this more from a like blending perspective?
I mean, I want to think too that it's like the Kentucky weather. Maybe that has something to do with it too. Like we've had insane weather the last little bit. I don't know how that works when they're bringing it out of the barrels and everything. As far as like our weather has been the last couple of years, I feel like we have like late winters and like long.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but I want to think that he still wants to keep it traditional. I don't think he wants to like change it too much, but at the same time, he is the master behind it, and maybe he Maybe he wants it to be approachable to more people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think that, and this was just kind of the process that I went through thinking about this. I don't think that this is his fault necessarily. I don't think it's really his doing. I'm sure that he has some say here or there on what the final product turns out to be. But I mean, these were not barrels that were rested when he was the master distiller.
True.
And also, I mean, the master distiller is supposed to be doing the distilling portion of it, not the, blending and crafting
Right.
necessarily.
Who's on that panel? Who's on the barrel proof panel?
I would be on that panel
I know
in a
you would.
heartbeat. I would sell a kidney.
What if they just randomly ask people to be on each release? Like, you're going to be on the A panel this year. I'm going to pick the barrel proof, Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Heaven Hill, I'm waiting for the call. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just waiting for the call.
He's got boxes of Elijah Craig barrel proof. He's got plenty of stuff to study. Trust me.
I will say, though, despite the fact that this is lower proof, this is like classic Elijah Craig barrel proof.
It smells really good.
I don't think I'm going to have as wild a reaction to an Elijah Craig barrel proof as I did the A120 a couple of years ago. But this is still...
It smells like...
It smells great.
This is one of those that just smells like what bourbon should smell like. Like, it's just classic.
Well, and I've always said Elijah Craig is what bourbon should taste like in general. And I mean, if the barrel proof version is any indication, this is,
It's
further proof.
Yeah, it's just classic Heaven Hill. Like, what do we say on the porch on the floor? Heaven Hill. It's just like, it smells like Bardstown. Like, it smells like Bardstown and like a little bit of a bakery in the background. Like, you're in bourbon country and there's somebody making some like cinnamon cookies or something in the background. That's what this smells like.
Yeah, it's got that like snickerdoodle cookie that I've always had come through on Elijah Craig. But it's just kind of like cranked up because it's barrel proof.
It's a bakery. Like, it's just a bakery in a pour.
You know what it reminds me a lot of is the confectionaries in Disney World.
I love that place.
Disney World in general, but going in... Oh, dude.
I like the bakeries and all that.
Dude. When we do our family trip to Disney World, we are doing an episode where we pair baked goods from the Disney bakery with bourbon.
Oh, my gosh.
100%. Well, I'll go out and find friggin' Goofy so that we can get him on the episode.
Gosh, Mickey. Oh. I'm going.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, guys.
I'm going to Disney World in April
I didn't know that.
for April's birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she. It's her 40th. And
Hold on.
what?
She was named April because she was born.
Oh
in
yeah.
April.
Her mom's so lame.
Huh. Well,
That's just how it is. That's how it be sometimes.
okay.
You know.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But yeah, we just me and her are going in for her birthday.
Super jealous.
So I plan on sneaking all the stuff inside Disney, and I will be pairing stuff all day long.
Anyway. So, I mean, this really does have just nothing but confectionery sweetness to it.
Just classic, like those bakery notes all amped up, 120 proof.
Some brown sugar. A little dark.
I was going to say I got a little maple in there, too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a pancake when the maple syrup's kind of been soaked in there for a little
Yeah,
while.
oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like straight like maple hitting you right in on the palate.
And
but
it's funny that you say that because I do kind of get a little bit of butteriness on it as well. I will say I'm kind of missing a little bit of the oak influence, though.
it doesn't taste that old.
No.
It reminds me of, you know, it reminds me of some of those picks that we've tried that are like, what, the 9 years?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, the age statement on this hasn't changed. It's still 12 years old.
Yeah.
But they can take away our freedom. No, they can take.
Say, damn, he's getting into a monologue here.
They can take away the age statement on the small batch all day long, and I'll mostly be okay with it. If they take away the age statement on the barrel proof, I will be pissed.
You flip this table.
I will be upset, and I'll probably quit the podcast.
Damn.
I'll quit everything I love.
Can you show me how to edit before? I'll keep it going.
Without me, you're just gonna keep the podcast going.
Yeah.
I think that's really
It's
funny.
like a legacy.
Yeah, I love that.
You can't let it stop.
No,
I'm going to pass this on to our kids one day, right? Is that how it works?
sure. I don't think a podcast has ever lasted that long. Could you
see what
imagine though
happens.
if they did the same? Like if bands did the same thing?
Oh, they just pass it on to their kids.
Yeah, like eventually the Allman Brothers Band is just like their kids.
It's like Kiss, but it's Kiss Kids. Kids Kiss. What?
It doesn't work.
Sorry.
Either way.
You know what I mean.
This is a wild episode.
You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. So the price at least MSRP has not changed. They still say it's $60 a bottle.
Last one I got was 75.
I mean, I think that's just what you're going to get it for anymore.
75 to 80 something. Yeah. I guess some places probably more.
Yeah, but I think at $60, if we're kind of consistently getting this quality, I don't mind it. But if it's going to start creeping up in price, they've got to step up their game a little bit.
If it starts creeping up in price and keeps creeping down in proof, I'm pissed.
Here's my one thing, though. I think this is more interesting than any Elijah Craig barrel proof we got last year. I think this stands out so much more than anything that Elijah Craig barrel proof was in 2021.
Yeah, because normally I'm a C guy on these, and I actually like B of last year. And I just had some more of the C because that was the last one I got, and it's honestly just something I want to drink if I just want to have a high proof. It's not anything like, ooh, I'm craving some Elijah Craig barrel proof. It's just like, oh, I want something a little higher proof. I'll drink some of that. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm putting it in a rocks glass, and I'm just sitting with it while I watch TV.
Yeah.
But, C918, I'm putting that in the Glen, and I'm just smelling it, and I'm just studying it.
Enjoying it for the rest of the night. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
I like this for what it is, but I don't know if I like this as an Elijah Craig barrel proof. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that we are missing out on what makes Elijah Craig barrel proof special.
There's just that hits you somewhere, like hit you in the face, hit you in the finish, whatever. That's just like, that's Elijah Craig barrel proof. There's not anything on that. This is like a safe version of Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Yeah.
This is like, let's ease somebody into a barrel proof whiskey.
Would you rather pick up one of these safe Elijah Craig barrel proofs or find a really off the wall, definitely doesn't taste like Elijah Craig barrel proof pick?
Pick.
Okay.
I feel like the picks are just, they have that kind of like uncut, kind of
I mean, this is
like,
non-chill filter too.
Yeah, but I mean, like that kind of like, it's not been like rounded around the edges. It's kind of like, here we are, barrel proof whiskey.
Yeah.
Like they have that. This feels like they took barrel proof whiskey and they're like, we're going to make sure that it appeals to everybody.
It's barrel proof whiskey with training wheels.
Yeah. Like it's barrel proof whiskey with those bumpers that they put at bowling
lanes. Yeah.
That's what this is.
Which is a shame because I feel like it should be just bold and brash and just something that you want to sit and sip on all the time, like the C918, which is my favorite bourbon of all time still. But this is good, but it could be great. I want Elijah Craig barrel proof to be great.
Right.
And it's not been great in a couple of years.
That's a good way to put it. It's good. if I see it for MSRP, I'm going to buy it.
Absolutely.
But it's not anything that I'm going to bring out and be like, you've never tried Elijah Craig Barrel Proof? I'm not reaching for that.
This is not the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof to give to ECBP virgins.
No, because they're going to take that and they're going to be like, this is pretty good. And then you're going to be like, here, try this, whatever back 136 proof one that you have. And they're going to be like, what? This is killing me.
Yeah. Should have given me this one first.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like overall it's hard for us to kind of keep breaking down individual scores on Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs because they're going to be fairly consistent unless something just completely blows it out of the water like the A120 did. But it's still a buy for me.
I don't think there's ever, unless I have like multiple backups of one, there's never going to be a time I see one sitting there for a regular price and I say, I'm going to pass on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless I have like two of them already.
Unless I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless I really got to buy groceries instead of bourbon. But
guess what, kids? It's bourbon soup for dinner.
Got ramen and bourbon tonight.
Hey, a great pairing.
Yeah, no doubt.
We should do that for sips and snacks
Heck
one
yes.
time. Do ramen.
I would love that. I love ramen.
I'm totally down.
Yeah, it's a buy. Anytime you can get an affordable Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, I would say keep it just to have it.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the one you impress your friends with who haven't had them before? No.
But, I mean, like, at this price point, for the quality of whiskey that you are getting, and the fact that it's barrel proof.
And it's 12 years old.
It's 12 years old. I mean, it's hard not to justify picking one up.
It's just us who have had all the other ones.
Yeah, exactly.
We're judging it hard.
Yeah. In retrospect, yes, I do think that I would prefer other batches or something with a little bit more punch. But this is still very serviceable.
Yeah.
So
if you've got more and you're kind of on the fence and you don't have the extra cash, this may be one to pass on.
yeah.
So,
But also, if you like those sweeter flavors, especially in a barrel proof whiskey,
if you like to be a little bumper bowling alley baby barrel proof person, then this may be your thing.
you just call our listeners babies.
No, I said if they like it, if the person's like, yeah, I like bumper baby barrel proof whiskey, then this is the bottle for them.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So,
How about some tips and bits, Eric?
tips and bits.
What do you have to recommend to our listeners this week?
God,
Well, can I just
go.
make a note before we get too far into it? We've lost like 4 heavy hitters in the entertainment
RIP.
world recently. We recorded on New Year's Eve. Literally after I hit stop on the recording, I got a tweet that said Betty White died. So it was Betty White, Bob Saget, America's dad, whom I just love dearly and dearly and dearly. And just, I like the more and more that I dig into who he was as a person, it just makes me love him more.
If you follow me on Facebook, I posted this, but I really think he's just laughing at people because there are plenty of people who do not know the Bob Saget stand-up.
Oh, absolutely.
Who only know him from Full House. And if you take somebody who only knows the Full House Bob Saget and you listen to some of his stand-up, I could imagine the thoughts and what people are thinking, like, whoa, this guy said this and all that. His stand-up is amazing.
Well, I watched the other night this. It was kind of an interview, kind of just like a I don't know, a discussion, I guess, that he did at 92Y with John Oliver, and it was just an amazing conversation. But there's this whole, like, it was right around the time that his first book came out, which was in like 2014, and there's this paragraph in his book where he makes up just a very dirty scenario where he gets pulled over by a couple of cops, And the end of the paragraph is, everything I said before now in this paragraph didn't actually happen. It didn't make any sense. So, but he was just such a wonderful human being and such an intelligent, incredible performer. And the fact that like he died the night after he had the gig that brought him back into doing stand-up and the thing that he loved, and like his final like post to the world was, I'm back into this and I love this so much and it reminds me of why I love this.
I know, man.
And the fact that like he just went peacefully in his sleep.
Yeah.
Like that's how you want to go.
And
right?
I hated when people were like, "Oh, blah blah blah," you know.
Yeah,
People
but
were
like
saying stuff.
go out on that kind of high and then just, you know, enjoy the fact that this person lived the life that they loved.
Yep.
And that's what he did. And that's what's so incredible about who Bob Saget was. And I don't mean to gloss over Betty White either, but I went through a very short grieving process with Betty White where I just watched a day's worth of Golden Girls episodes.
She was awesome. I loved her Deadpool review. Did you?
I've not seen that.
Oh gosh, tips and bits. Go watch Betty White's Deadpool review.
I'm gonna have to now.
It's so good.
But then, like, just today,
Meatloaf.
as of recording, Meatloaf passed away. His daughter actually lives in Lexington.
Yeah, I knew that.
And she's family friends on Lucy's side as well. It's just insane. But then also today's her birthday.
Oh,
Not a good birthday present. Yeah. But Louis Anderson also passed away.
Remember
as
his
well.
cartoon?
I don't know if
Did
I
you
ever.
ever watch
What was
it?
it called?
Life with Louie. From 1994. It was funny.
I mean, I was a year old in '94, so
Well, I was only 8, and
Yeah.
I didn't probably understand half the stuff that was in it. I just thought it was funny.
But I loved his work. I always just was so fixated on whatever character he did in any piece of work. And one of my favorite things that he did was play Zach Galifianakis. Why can't I say this name? Galifianakis. Thank you. His mom in the clown show, whatever it was called. Zach Galifianakis is a clown. That's what the name of the show was.
Check that show out.
But it was just wonderful work.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that we've lost so many wonderful, talented actors and comedians and
then,
musicians.
One of the actors from Moon Knight died in a skiing accident.
Just out of the blue, too. Moon Knight's not even come out yet.
No, he had all his stuff filmed, it said, and he was young Hannibal Lecter in the Hannibal show.
Really? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Crazy stuff, man.
So anyway, R.I.P.
So, hug your loved ones.
Yeah, hug your favorite celebrities.
Don't do that. You're going to get sent to jail.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. I've
said you know what I mean a lot this episode. That's pretty bad.
I've told you my Dennis Quaid story, right?
Have you told the show though?
I don't know.
You've told me.
So I think I was 13 or 14. And we were on spring break in Chicago with my family. And I'm sure I've told this on the show before, but it's a good story. I love this story. It's one of the funnier things that I've experienced in my life. But we went to the zoo and we were indoor at the penguin exhibit. And I look over to my left and it's Dennis Quaid. I mean, Dennis Quaid is right there. He's with his wife and his son. And I could not think of his name to save my life. And I went up to my dad, and I probably said it louder than I should have, but I said, Dad, I think that's the guy from The Rookie. Because that's the movie that I really knew him from at that point as well. And he was like, oh, Dennis Quaid? I go, yeah, I think Dennis Quaid is over there. And like within seconds, and we were inside, by the way, at this penguin exhibit. He like threw his sunglasses on and he and his family just like power walked out of the building.
Get out of here.
We can't be around the people who recognize us. But like, I felt so bad about it because clearly like he wanted to just have a relaxing day with his family and he didn't want to be recognized by anybody. But here's this like snot-nosed young teenager going, "You were in a baseball movie."
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's the one thing, like, when you do see a random celebrity, like, as I'm older now, I'm like, just let them be. Like, just let them enjoy their time. When I was younger, though, I would have been annoying, too.
Well, and I wasn't trying to, like, draw too much attention to it. It was just kind of like, Dad, this is really cool. Like, this guy from this movie that we love so much. And I still love that movie. I haven't watched it in forever, but that might be my evening is watching the Rookie. It's a good film. Anyway, regular tips and bits now.
Back.
That's all staying in. I'm not cutting that out.
No, I'm saying we're back to regular tips and bits.
Oh, okay,
that was our memorial.
I got you.
Our memorial tips and
An
bits.
air horn is the memorial for the people that died.
No. What?
This episode makes
just
no
go
sense.
back and edit and put like some kind of soothing music in there for me. Well, I feel like a broken record because I'm just constantly talking about the shows that I've been watching.
How did you like the finale for Yellow Jackets?
So good.
Yeah?
It gave you just enough to be like, where's my next season at? You know what I mean? Like, it touched on a few things that you were waiting to find out in this first season.
Yeah.
There was some death. There was some, like, gore. There was some, like, stuff happened that you're like, what the hell's going on? Like, these writers are doing it right. The pacing of the show is great, and you can tell they know where they're going. Like, it's not one of those shows where you're like, it kind of doesn't seem it's going anywhere at the moment. You know what I mean? I loved it. I'm ready for season 2 already, and it's going to be another year, I guess, before I get to see season 2. Peacemaker episode 4 just came out.
Peacemaker's been great.
So good. It's a little different ending than the past couple episodes.
Did your wife's warning?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
April, she watched it before me, and she was like, "Get ready for the ending. It's emotional." I was like, "Peacemaker emotional? What?" And I watched it, and I was like, "Damn, she was right." Watch Peacemaker, Attack on Titan anime, so good, still going on, and then the Book of Boba Fett. We just finished episode 4. And
it's rant time.
I'm going to rant just for a second. I'm going to try not to spoil this. I have a freaking Boba Fett tattoo, okay? Like, he's the mysterious warrior that you just didn't know much about in the old stuff, and now we're getting to know him a little bit more, and I just don't know how I feel about it, Perry. I just don't know. First off, punk rock tattooing is a mistake. I repeat, a f***ing mistake.
A thing that he texted to me was, it might be my least favorite thing in all of Star Wars.
It is one of my least... Yeah, it is. Punk rock tattooing has no business being there. They could have made these kids in this gang look more like Star Wars. They didn't have to have freaking 1950s speeders...
Well, it is
brightly painted.
It is really weird.
We don't have any money. We don't have any jobs. But look at these speeders we have.
I mean, okay, yeah, but you look at like if you think about the inspiration
they have zippers. How many Star Wars people have zippers?
Let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
You think about like the kids who grow up with no money, but they have the know-how to like rebuild a car, right? And it's a cool looking car and it's functional and everything. And like that's where I'm kind of seeing that coming from. I don't disagree with you. I think that punk rock tattooing is really, really strange, especially considering that everything that we've seen up to this point is just kind of like poverty stricken communities. And I mean, I don't know. Where is the influence coming from?
That's what I'm saying.
More than
like,
anything.
I feel like they think they just need to put this different thing in there and make it like cool and punky and all this stuff. I love punk rock music. I grew up dressing like a punk. I don't want it in tattooing.
Yeah, I
don't want to go to the tattoo parlor that's actually a modification parlor and have friggin' what's his name, Thundercat, the rapper guy, doing this stuff.
Was that Thundercat?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
With green dreads. I don't want that in my Star Wars. I don't want that in Boba Fett. I don't want it.
I feel like it would fit better on like a show based around Coruscant.
Yes. Please, it's Tatooine. It's a freaking planet and it's supposed to be the crappiest planet in Star Wars, Perry. It's not. This is not punk rock. Tatooine is a mistake.
I think this whole episode is just going to go unfiltered.
God. I'm kind of torn about Beastmaster Boba Fett too. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know, Perry. I don't know.
He is openly weeping, folks.
Like,
it's very strange.
He's just petting like animals by the neck, and he's smiling, and he's got the fakest, whitest teeth in the galaxy. Why can't? Okay,
he spent forever in the Sarlacc pit, and he came out with crest white strips styled teeth.
Hopefully, by the time this comes out, everybody's watched the episode. But he gets the Slave One back, which is not the Slave One anymore. They changed the name. I don't care about that, honestly.
It's whatever.
But. Oh, he gets it back and he just yeets all those biker gangs. Like, he just yeets them out of he just kills them all. And, like, they're playing his music. That's the Boba Fett I want to see. I want to see this badass Boba Fett. I don't want to see Boba Fett petting the necks of doggy beasts. Okay? I don't want to see that, Perry. I'm so torn on this show.
Here's what... This feels like you are talking to me like it's my fault. Which cracks me up and also has given me a little bit of PTSD. But I don't disagree with you. I think that it is a really messy show.
It's just all over the place.
It is. And it goes back to what we said after the first episode, or at least what I said. It is time for us to get back to what made Star Wars Star Wars.
Yes, they're trying to add too much extra stuff.
And that's the Jedi. And I understand that they're doing all of this extended canon. They've got books and they've got comic books and they've got little just bits and pieces that are the things that kind of we want to see on screen. So do them on screen. Like, I want more Jedi stuff.
Punk rock Tatooine is a mistake.
I'm tired of bounty hunters.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
I mean, how excited were you in The Mandalorian when Ahsoka and Luke and everybody...
I was so excited.
Yeah.
That was an incredible moment. But now I don't know. I think that the biggest crime of Book of Boba Fett is that it exists. And that it makes people think differently about a character that they felt so strongly about.
You are exactly right, because I'm like I said before, I'm a big Boba Fett fan, but I think the mystery and like the toughness of Boba Fett, him not really talking that much, like saying a few words, and then even in The Mandalorian, he shows up, he's still mysterious. You don't know much about him.
I would have been happy with that
just
being
kicks
just
ass,
left.
and then you're like, oh, okay, that's awesome, Boba Fett. Maybe he just shows up randomly, but giving him his own show, and now
that was a mistake.
Yeah, I started off thinking, you know what? This guy's got layers. Let's give him some time. But now the more layers they give him, the more or less Boba Fett he is.
Yeah, and let me be honest, too. It's not that I haven't enjoyed watching this show.
Oh, I'll finish it.
I will, too. And I mean, I've never been like, oh, I don't want to watch this next episode.
No.
There are shows that I've gotten into where it's felt like a slog trying to get through it. This is not one of those shows. However, it definitely doesn't have the quality of The Mandalorian.
No.
It doesn't have the depth of storytelling that The Mandalorian does. I think it's cool that we see Temuera Morrison coming back as this character and seeing little bits and pieces of Jango Fett as well. But
I just think a whole season of this, it was just not. I don't know. I don't know. I just want my mysterious like having Boba Fett take over and be this crime lord is cool. I just don't think I need to see every detail of it.
No, we could have had one episode of The Mandalorian where they connected, and he talks about how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and then we see him go and kill Bib Fortuna and become the new crime boss.
Yeah, and you're
on
just
Tatooine.
You hear about it, and you're like, "What the hell?" Like Boba Fett's the crime lord, and then like you get to see a little bit of it.
But I just don't. It feels like all of this backstory is largely inconsequential, and so it just makes me wish that we had The Mandalorian this year instead of.
I hate punk rock Tatooine. And those teeth, those white teeth kill me.
Well, I've been playing GoldenEye 007.
Oh, from N64?
Yeah.
I need to do that.
I never played
frustration on that, dropping down into that first level where it's all in the snow. God.
I never played it when I was growing up. And so I've struggled with it greatly, just trying to figure out like the little minutia of different levels and missions and everything. But it has been so much fun,
dude.
I want to stream it.
Ever.
I want to stream it on Twitch. That's one of the games that I want to like get into for Twitch. But it's just awesome. It's such a fun game, and even like it, the polygons back then didn't make everybody look exactly like they do in real life, but you can still kind of go, oh, that's Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm not too upset by the way this guy looks.
Looks like he got crushed by a brick in his face, but
on all four sides.
Yeah, I can tell though. I can tell who that is.
Yeah, but it's so much fun. It's just good stuff.
That's awesome. I love that game.
I think that's about it for this week.
It's been a good episode.
It's been a long episode. Sorry for the folks who don't necessarily like longer episodes, but
sorry for the folks who are boring.
That was a power move.
I don't mean that. I'm just saying, like, it's fun to listen to other stuff every once in a while.
I know what you mean. Well,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
That's my new line. You know what I mean.
Eventually, I'm just going to start going, I really don't this time.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know what you mean. Eric, you want to wrap us up? Break us home? Take us to the next level.
Take us to the house. If you want to support the show.
What a weird energy.
Right. Oh, man. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com and search My Bourbon Podcast. Like we said before, the podcast has fees it has to pay. It has stuff to do. We need your support, and you'll get free stuff. You'll get free episodes. It's not free because you're supporting us.
Eric. It's not free.
You know what I mean. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show, and at $5, you get the pregame chats, pours from the floor, and any other random thing we feel like putting on Patreon. And you get an uncut version of this episode. I don't even know if Barry's going to have the time to do an uncut version.
I don't know.
Edited version, I mean. So.
I mean, I'll cut out some silences and some weird moments, but you guys might have gotten the full-fledged, explicit version of this week's episode.
That's what we do.
That's what Eric does.
Yeah. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to get with us to send samples or anything to the show, this is mybourbonshop@gmail.com. Send an email. And if you want some merch or apparel, it's bourbonshop.threadless.com. If you want some Whiskey Mutant merch, it's whiskeymutant.myshopify.com. If you want to leave us a barrel rings, which listen to last week's episode for one of the best barrel rings we ever had.
No, not one of. It was the best barrel rings we've ever had.
Oh, you can leave us a voicemail at 859-428-8253, and we'll play it on there, and we'll reply to it.
We might call you back.
Yeah, I'll call you back. If I feel the need to, I will. On all social media, you can do My Bourbon Pod to follow the show. We have a Facebook group. This is My Bourbon Podcast Facebook group. Get in there. You can ask questions, talk to other people, share some memes, whatever you want to do. YouTube, this is My Bourbon Podcast. Perry goes live every Thursday at 8.
I love going live.
He does. He loves it.
I love it. I might do it on Instagram later today as well, just because. Why the heck not?
Why not?
Why not?
That's what it's there for.
Exactly.
Set
up my little tripod. We haven't done.
We got to bring that back this year.
What do we call it? Pairs and pours.
No,
No.
prepare your pour.
Prepare your pour. Sorry.
Yes, that was our little Instagram thing we did for a while. If you want to follow me, I'm at Whiskey Mutant on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. I try to go live on Instagram every Sunday for Taking Back Sundays. And then I think that's it.
I think so too.
Just support us.
Leave us a 5-star rating and review.
Yeah.
If you leave us a review, we will read it out here on the show. And we'll
will.
let everybody know that you are the coolest person in the world.
It's true.
Which is actually, I haven't told you this, but we have just been given the permission to name somebody the coolest person in the world.
It's about time.
It is. And we are going
We got that
to,
email, but I didn't know if you replied to it or not.
I wanted to kind of bask in it for a little while, but by the end of 2022, we will have named the coolest person in the world. So if you want to get in on that, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review.
Yeah.
You become a patron of the show as well. There's just so many ways for you to, enter into
possibilities are endless.
You've heard of the sexiest man alive.
But have you heard of the coolest person in the world?
This is better. You actually win a cash prize with it.
Cash prize.
Yeah, $25.
I'll throw up $25.
And a pack of
I'll give him a sample.
Big League Chew.
I'll give him this bottle, this empty bottle. They can make an infinity bottle.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll give him
That seems
two
worth
bottles.
It. Cool.
That finished.
All right, you cool people.
Cool cats. Oh my God.
Thanks so much for listening. Next week, I'm not sure what we're doing next week. We'll figure it out.
It's a surprise. You got to come back to find out.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we appreciate the heck out of you. We love you all so much. It's you're great. See you guys.
You're beautiful.
You are beautiful people. Beautiful people. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Eric.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.
Peace.